Well, I was doing less thinking and being more agile. We all went through a lot the past year, but going through closure of stores, reopening of stores, and having to run stores differently under the pandemic was an experience that I've never had. What I'll say is that, safety is a totally different thing now in retail. The customer's expectation around safety is something that none of us have ever experienced. So understanding what that's like. And then now, as we evolve through the pandemic, she wants an experience. So, for me, it was really about how to build back the store the right way for the customer. But now we're at a point where over the last couple of months, it's been about how do we get the footsteps back into the store? How do we get her to want to come to the store? And what are those offerings that, is making it a unique experience for her? Because quite frankly, she can shop online. And that's really what's been the main focus and what's really initiated the partnership with you all with FitMatch.
Awesome. we'll get into that in 1 second. But more on this point, Alex, which was sort of as things were happening, especially around the laws, right? When it came to fitting rooms and safety. I'm just curious as to how crazy that was, because it seemed like it was for a while, it was just changing every day as to what the new rules and regulations were. And in terms of how Macy's approached it, was the plan to just be very conservative in this area?
I think Macy's is, an amazing company, and obviously they're at the forefront of, making these decisions during the pandemic and being the, leaders in, how we run retail environments through the pandemic. So, we constantly shifted. We're constantly, every couple months, we're continuing to evolve as state mandates lift. There's different precautions taken. And then the other thing that you have to realize is that every state is different. Every county could be different. Yeah. So you could have, a division of multiple stores that are all running a line, but somewhat have some differences within their buildings, but we all are going after the same mission. So it's definitely a dynamic environment. But everything that we do revolves around her.
Yeah. And then right before we jump in, Cynthia, really quickly, would you agree with the premise here that retail has truly evolved about 20 years worth of evolution in about 12 months? Or do you think that's exaggerated?
I'm going to say it a different way, because I do completely agree with that. But I would say instead that what a lot of bad old of retail that was being sustained by investors or by just momentum died. And a lot of the things that were already percolating and were able to thrive. There are some things that came out brand new during the last year, but almost everything that we're seeing replace it were things that we're trying to pop through for the last 5 years anyway. And a lot of decision makers inside retailers were able to make room for them because they fit. And a lot of customers who had been resistant to trying new things, whether it was a new shopping channel, a new delivery method, a new brand, a new anything, had the time and the reason to try, and they found that they were delighted. So it was absolutely pushed forward very quickly because people got out of their own way and tried things they otherwise would have allowed resistance to slow down. And it's been amazing because there are a lot of the things we all knew were inevitable anyway.
Yeah. Well, we're the biggest testament of that. In November 2019, our website had never try on clothes again. So before pandemic, before everything, we looked at a shopping experience, and our just main premise was like, look, trying on clothes sucks. It takes too much time. You can give customers time back in their hands. That's the ultimate win. And then of course the pandemic happened. And so that's a good example of, I think, we're a good example of the pandemic really accelerating everything that we were already building.
And it's a really important distinction because we know that as soon as I don't have to go shopping with a mask on, I'm not going to shop with a mask on anyway. So we don't want to focus on the pandemic changes that were temporary. We want to focus on the pandemic changes that were good changes. So I'm never not going to do curbside pickup again, right? I'm never not going to use virtual dressing room solutions again now that I can. So we all have to focus on this as an accelerant and not as a reason and not as an anecdotal year that is going to be left behind.
Absolutely. So Alex, turning now to the customer experience, I'd love if you can go into a little bit about now some of the pain points that you are experiencing, on the ground, really, and how the partnership with FitMatch sort of formed, and then really what you started to see out of that partnership, and then of course ways that we can obviously build something along those same lines in the future.
Yeah, so as I explained to you, we as we started to reopen the doors, the customer was a little bit weary coming back, and as we evolved through the pandemic and went through different stages, she's becoming more and more and more comfortable, and her expectation is growing higher and higher and higher on what she expects from an experience when she comes into the store. At this point, the customer wants to try on her clothes. People are going back to weddings. They're going back to wearing dresses, tailored clothing. So with that being said, there's a need for her to want what she wants right away. And in Chicagoland, our state mandate requires us, it's difficult for us to be able to manage that with the customer. So FitMatch did a basically pop up in our mall at Hawthorne and Vernon Hills. And Robin partnered with me, and she just introduced herself. And I said, you know what, let me go over there and let me get pitched. Let me check this out. And I brought my personal stylist over, my social media sales manager over, and we just did the experience ourselves. And it just got me thinking, this is something that right now we can offer to the customer that can be a solution. So what we did was we started to target key days. So big days like a Saturday 1-day sale or a big event that we have within our location. And we specifically chose areas of the store to promote where we felt like the business was going to be saturated. So for example, right now it's all about prom. And Robin did a really great job partnering with you guys and really honing in on the size chart and how to, really go after that customer for these specific events. And we just made it big. We created an entire experience. We opened up a private area fitting room for her to get fitted. And when the customer automatically came up and said, was frustrated and said, you don't have a fitting room, we said, you know what? We don't, but guess what we do have for you today? And, at first she might be a little bit hesitant, but what I could tell you is that, your stats are accurate. Once she experienced it, she became a lot more open to it, because at the end of the day, you said it exactly right. Before the pandemic, no one liked to try clothes on, nobody likes to do that. So it's a good solution either way. And I think now that she's opening up to it and it was something that we had to offer, it just became a really big win for us. And what we saw was a better customer experience, in our building, more footsteps. We had less of complaints, less people being vocal about, the fitting rooms. And we just continued to do this. We've done about 4 events, and we just, every weekend we're partnering together and just continuing to grow it.
The thing that I love the most, Alex, is one, firstly, your partnership, right? Because as you said it, it really it's from an organic experience. You got pitched and you're like, I'm having a pain point in my experience. Let's see how we can make this work. And then we were able to just do it very quickly. And the thing I like about it is Macy's is a multi-branded, very diverse, right, retailer. And we're focusing a little bit now on the private label side. But I view this as something huge, right? Not only the number of stores or what the different departments that we could help you really drive business with, over the long term. So definitely, we're super excited about this. So excited that we're doing a similar event now, I think tomorrow in Glendale, in California. So in summary, I would say here, I'll just touch on the experience. What we decided to do was, as Alex pointed out, really try to make it about the customer. A lot of the customers, as you can see and probably imagine, they did not know about this experience before walking in the store. And so I think that from just surprising them with, look, we're hearing you, we're thinking about what you're doing or your frustrations, and we are offering you a solution, immediately made the customer even more just happier inside, right? It's just like, okay, they're listening to me, they understand me, and it's just not no longer status quo. And so, we're super excited about this partnership. We're very grateful